Hey guys, what's going on? You're in the secret level here with Gerns, and here's a Diablo 3 Season 10 Witch Doctor Leaderboard build guide for the Jade Harvester set. The Jade Harvester build is one of my favorite builds for the Witch Doctor as it does a massive amount of damage all in one shot, which is great to watch, as well as the gear that you can use is somewhat flexible while still remaining viable, and it can make for a very sweet speedrun build as well. So first we'll go through the gear and the skills, and then we'll go through some gameplay tips. For the Jade Harvester's helm, you'll want to have Intelligence, Vitality, and Critical Hit Chance. For the Jade Harvester's shoulders, you'll want to have Intelligence, Vitality, Cooldown Reduction, and Haunt Damage. For the Jade Harvester's gloves, you'll want Intelligence, Crit Chance, Crit Damage, and Cooldown Reduction. For the Jade Harvester's chest, you'll want Intelligence, Vitality, and Haunt Damage. For the Jade Harvester's leggings, you'll want Intelligence, Vitality, and Armor or All Resist. For the Jade Harvester's boots, you'll want Intelligence, Vitality, Armor, All Resist, or Movement Speed. The Jade Harvester set utilizes the Soul Harvest skill as well as damage over time skills. The 2-set bonus allows your haunt to do a large amount of instant damage to targets that you've already haunted, making it extremely useful against single targets like bosses or Rift Guardians. The 4-set bonus allows your Soul Harvest to benefit from all of its runes, and the 6-set bonus, the big one, allows your Soul Harvest to consume 300 seconds worth of any damage over time effects on those targets. That does a ridiculous amount of damage. So since we're going to be using Soul Harvest and damage over time skills, we'll want to set up the rest of our gear to accommodate for that. So for the bracers, we'll be using Lakumba's Ornament, giving Soul Harvest 6% damage reduction per stack, and you can also switch these out for the Nemesis bracers whenever you're doing speed runs. For the belt, I am using the Haunting Girdle to give Haunt 1 extra spirit. However, you can also use the Belt of Transcendence if you would rather summon a whole bunch of little fetish friends. For the jewelry, I am using Unity on myself and my follower for the extra damage reduction, as well as the Convention of Elements for the extra damage burst, and a Hellfire Amulet with an extra passive, mine being the Pierce the Veil passive. Now if you have a good enough Traveler's Pledge and Compass Rose, I would recommend using these instead of the Hellfire Amulet and the Convention of Elements. However, it might take a while to come across a good pair. For the weapon, you're going to want to use the Sacred Harvester. Since we're going to be using Soul Harvest a whole bunch, it will now give it a maximum of 10 stacks, which will also sync very nicely with the bracers. For the offhand, I am using the Vile Hive to give Locust Swarm a bit more damage, as well as help it spread faster. However, if you find that you're taking a lot of damage, I recommend using Henry's Perquisition instead. Now for the skills, I am using Horrify for the crowd control with the Frightening Aspect rune for the extra toughness, Soul Harvest with the Swallow Your Soul rune if you're using a poisoned haunt, or the Languish rune if you're using a cold haunt, Spirit Walk with the Jaunt rune for the extra invincibility time, Locust Swarm for the extra damage with the Cloud of Insects rune for the reduced damage, Haunt being the main supplier of the damage for Soul Harvest, and you can either use the Poison Spirit rune or the Resentful Spirits rune. If you do use the Resentful Spirits rune, be sure to use % cold damage instead of % poison damage on your gear. And lastly, Piranhas with the Piranado rune. For my passive skills, I am using Confidence Ritual for the extra damage, Grave Injustice for the cooldown reduction, Creeping Death for the extra damage, Gruesome Feast for the extra mana and intelligence, as well as Pierce the Veil from my Hellfire Amulet. For my Q powers, I am using the Furnace for the weapon. However, you can switch this out with either the Vile Hive or Henry's Perquisition depending on which items you're using, and you can also switch this out with Wormwood whenever you're doing speed runs. For the cube armor, I'm using Quetzalcoatl, which when combined with the Creeping Death passive essentially doubles the damage of your Locust Swarm and Haunt. And for the cube jewelry, I am using the Ring of Emptiness, which gives you a massive damage boost to enemies that are affected by both the Haunt and Locust Swarm. Now you can also switch this out with one of the rings that I am wearing depending on what stats you have and what items you are using. Now for the Paragon Points, it's really up to you which ones you level up first. It really depends on where you are in the build and what stats you have on your gear. However, I do recommend putting in however many points you need into movement speed to get you to that 25%. Now for the follower, once again it's up to you. However, if you are using Unity, be sure to have Unity as one of their rings as well. Also, I will mention if you find you're running out of mana a little bit with the Pierce the Veil passive, you can try using the Templar as a follower and use his Inspire skill to give you a little bit extra mana regeneration. Now for some gameplay tips. So this build can be somewhat tricky to use at first, but after some practice at getting your rotation down, it becomes ridiculously deadly. As far as skill rotation goes, after grouping up some monsters, your general opener is usually a Piranado to squeeze them all together and apply that debuff, then cast a Locust Swarm once and start spamming Haunt. Now while you're casting Haunt, or if you need to a bit earlier, cast Spirit Walk. Make sure to stay close to the group and spam as many more Haunts as you can while you're in Spirit form. And just before the Spirit Walk ends, cast Horrify to fear the group, which should keep you relatively safe when the Spirit Walk does end. Now cast one or two more Haunts, then before the group returns to normal from the fear, cast Soul Harvest. By this time you should have enough Haunts up and the Locust Swarm to kill several monsters in the group. This will more or less instantly reset your cooldowns, including the Spirit Walk, so you can cast Spirit Walk right away again and repeat the rotation as needed. Now you also need to be careful with how many Piranados and Locust Swarms you cast, as they consume most of your mana with the Pierce the Veil passive. If you find you are running out of mana too frequently, first try working on your rotation to make sure you're not casting too many Locust Swarms or Piranados. You can also try using the Templar follower for his mana regen buff, and if you still find it too mana heavy, then you can always replace Pierce the Veil with another passive like Spirit Vessel. And finally, for bosses or Rift Guardians, try to make sure you have 10 stacks of Soul Harvest up once they spawn. If they spawn minions, take advantage of them by keeping your Soul Harvest at 10 stacks. If they don't spawn minions, then I suggest playing defensively and keeping your distance while spamming Haunt. If you are using Convention of Elements, then try and time your Soul Harvests during the appropriate element boost. Some of these boss or Rift Guardians also have skills that can one-shot you on higher and greater rifts, like Perdition for example. This can be fairly easily avoided if you correctly time your Spirit Walk before they cast. Most, if not all, of these one-shot skills have the same, if not longer, cooldown than Spirit Walk, assuming you have enough cooldown reduction. So you should be able to cast Spirit Walk to avoid any of those one-shot skills. Alright guys, so that's the video. I hope it helped, so be sure to leave a like if it did. That way I know I'm helping some people out, as well as subscribe here and join us in the secret level. Many more Diablo 3 build guides that are coming that you're going to want to check out, as well as some other great videos too. Anyways guys, keep on leveling, and this is Gurns exiting the secret level. Take it easy.